Welcome to our channel, your gateway to the most spine-chilling tales and unnerving true stories. Today, we present a true story, The Graveyard Shift. Samuel Jenkins, known to his friends and family as Sam, was a man of strong convictions and a deep sense of duty. As the new night security guard at the old Detroit Iron Works, he knew this job would not be easy. The plant had been closed for decades, its massive furnaces now silent sentinels guarding the rusting remains of forgotten industry. The graveyard shift, from midnight till dawn, was supposed to be the quietest time of all. But as Sam began his rounds, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The ironworks was huge, its vast network of corridors and tunnels stretching for miles beneath the surface. Sam's flashlight illuminated the worn concrete walls, the rusted pipes, and the ancient machinery that lined the passageways. The air was thick with the smell of oil, dust, and time itself. He rounded a corner and heard a faint creaking sound, like metal straining against its bonds. It was unsettling, to say the least. As he continued his patrol, the eerie sensation grew stronger. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls, and he swore he could hear footsteps echoing through the tunnels, even though he knew he was alone. He shrugged it off, telling himself it was just his imagination playing tricks on him. But then he saw it, a cold spot on the floor, where the air seemed to be thick with a sense of foreboding. Something wasn't right. Deciding to investigate further, Sam made his way to the heart of the ironworks, the control room. It was a dimly lit room, filled with dusty control panels and ancient computer terminals. On one of the terminals, he discovered an old ledger, its yellowed pages filled with faded handwriting. Curious, he opened it and began to read. The ledger detailed a tragic accident that had taken place decades ago. During the ironworks heyday, a group of workers had been conducting an illegal experiment, trying to increase production by pushing the machinery beyond its limits. The experiment had gone horribly wrong, and the workers had been crushed to death. The accident had been covered up, and the surviving employees had been sworn to secrecy. As he read, Sam could feel the weight of the tragedy pressing down on him. The anguished cries of the victims echoed in his mind, their final moments of terror and pain etched into the very fabric of the ironworks. He knew that he had to uncover the truth, to give the victims a voice, and to bring justice to their long-suffering souls. With renewed determination, Sam began to explore the tunnels and corridors once more, searching for clues that would lead him to the truth. He found himself drawn to an old, abandoned section of the ironworks, which had been sealed off for years. The door was rusted shut, but he managed to force it open with a crowbar. Inside, he found a hidden chamber, filled with dust-covered files and records. As he sifted through the documents, he uncovered a shocking secret. The company had been aware of the dangers posed by the illegal experiment, but had done nothing to stop it. They had simply let the workers die, and covered up the evidence to protect their own interests. Enraged, Sam vowed to bring the truth to light, no matter the cost. The rest of the night passed in a blur of investigation and discovery. Sam found evidence of other cover-ups and illegal activities, each more disturbing than the last. He knew that he was stumbling upon a dark conspiracy, one that stretched far beyond the walls of the ironworks. But he also knew that he was closing in on the truth, and that soon, the world would hear the cries of the forgotten victims. As dawn broke, signaling the end of his shift, Sam stepped out of the ironworks and into the harsh light of day. He was exhausted, both physically and emotionally, but he felt a sense of purpose and determination that he had never experienced before. The truth would come out, he promised himself, and justice would be served. And so, the saga of Sam Jenkins, the night security guard who uncovered the ironworks' dark secrets, began. Sam sat at his desk, the faint glow of his computer monitor casting eerie shadows across the dimly lit room. He'd been researching the history of the Detroit Ironworks for hours now, determined to uncover the truth behind the tragic accident that had claimed the lives of several workers decades ago. The further he delved into the archives, the more he realized that the incident had been shrouded in secrecy, hidden from public knowledge. As he scrolled through page after page of historical documents, Sam couldn't help but feel a growing sense of anger and frustration. It was clear that the owners of the ironworks had deliberately covered up the truth, sacrificing the lives of their employees for the sake of profit and reputation. The thought made his blood boil, and he found himself clenching his fists in fury. Just then, he heard a soft whispering coming from the shadows. At first, he dismissed it as just another hallucination, but when the whispers grew louder and more insistent, He knew he couldn't ignore them any longer. Slowly, he turned his chair to face the source of the noise. There, standing in the gloom, were the ghostly figures of the workers who had died in the accident. Their faces were twisted in pain, their bodies eternally frozen in the moments before their deaths. Sam tried to speak, to ask them what it was they needed, but no words would come out. The ghosts seemed to sense his confusion and fear, and their whispers grew louder, more urgent. He struggled to make sense of their cries, but it was clear that they were trying to communicate something important. Deciding that he needed help, Sam reached out to a local historian who specialized in the paranormal. The historian, an elderly woman named Dr. Elizabeth Weston, was intrigued by Sam's account of the haunting and agreed to meet him at the ironworks. As they sat in Sam's cramped office, the historian listened intently to his story, nodding thoughtfully as he described the ghostly apparitions and their incoherent whispers. "It sounds as if the spirits are still trapped here," she said, reliving their final moments over and over again. "It's not uncommon for the spirits of the deceased to become trapped in such a cycle, unable to move on, until their suffering is acknowledged and their story told." Sam felt a pang of guilt as he considered this. He'd been so focused on uncovering the truth about the accident that he hadn't given much thought to the spirits of the workers themselves. He resolved then and there that he would do whatever he could to help them find peace. Together, Sam and Dr. Weston began to piece together the events of the tragic night. Using the information in the ledger that Sam had found, as well as historical records and eyewitness accounts, they were able to reconstruct the sequence of events that had led to the accident. It turned out that the owners of the ironworks had knowingly neglected safety protocols in order to increase production, and when a faulty piece of machinery malfunctioned, it led to a catastrophic explosion. Several workers were killed instantly, and others suffered horrific injuries before finally succumbing to their wounds. As they continued their investigation, Sam and Dr. Weston discovered that the owners of the ironworks had covered up their negligence by bribing witnesses and manipulating evidence. The families of the victims were left with little to no answers, and the truth remained buried for decades. Sam felt a burning anger rising up within him, fueling his determination to see justice done. Finally, after weeks of research and investigation, Sam and Dr. Weston were ready to present their findings to the authorities. As they sat in the dimly lit interrogation room, Sam watched as the faces of the detectives and prosecutors registered disbelief, anger, and finally, resolve. The owners of the ironworks were brought to justice, and the ghosts of the workers were finally able to find peace. Sam felt a weight lift off his shoulders, knowing that he had helped to bring closure to their families and finally right the wrongs of the past. As the sun rose on a new day, Sam walked out of the courthouse, his steps lighter than they had been in years. He knew that there would be challenges ahead, but he also knew that he had made a difference. The spirits of the workers would always be with him, a constant reminder of the importance of fighting for what is right, even when the odds are against you. And so, with renewed purpose and determination, Sam continued his journey, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Sam and the historian stood before the hidden room, their hearts pounding with anticipation. After weeks of research and countless restless nights, they had finally uncovered its existence. The air inside was thick with the lingering sadness of lost souls, but Sam was determined to bring them peace. He took a deep breath and pushed open the door, revealing a small, dimly lit chamber adorned with fading photographs, wilted flowers, and worn mementos. In the center of the room was an ornate memorial altar, its surface covered in framed pictures of smiling faces that had long since faded away. The historian immediately recognized these people as the victims of the tragic accident that had taken place decades ago. She moved closer, studying each photo intently, as if hoping to glean some new information from their weary eyes. Sam, meanwhile, began to search the rest of the room. His gaze fell upon a large, old-fashioned safe wedged into the corner. He tried the handle, but it was locked tight. "I bet this has something important inside," he murmured to the historian. "Something that could finally put these poor souls to rest." She nodded solemnly, already kneeling down to examine the safe more closely. "It looks like it's been here for a while. Let's see if we can get it open." Together, they began to search the room for any tools that might help them force the safe. After rummaging through a dusty box, they found an old crowbar and a pair of vice grip pliers. Sam placed the crowbar against the safe's edge, and the historian steadied it with the pliers. With a creak and a groan, the safe finally gave way, swinging open to reveal its contents. Inside was a cassette tape, labeled simply Confession. Sam's heart raced as he pulled it out. "This must be it," he whispered, his voice trembling with excitement and fear. "The confession that will finally set these poor souls free." The historian nodded, her eyes shining with tears. She reached out and took the tape from him, carefully placing it into a new, protective case. They returned to the main part of the ironworks, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they were about to do. Sam switched on a dusty old tape player and inserted the confession tape. The hiss of static filled the air, and then a gravelly voice began to speak. "I take full responsibility for what happened that night. The accident was preventable, and I knew it. I covered it up to save my own skin. I should have stood by my workers, but I didn't. And now, they're gone." The voice broke, and there was a long silence. Sam and the historian exchanged glances, their expressions filled with sorrow and understanding. "I'm sorry, Sam," the voice continued, its tone resolute. "I'm sorry, to you and all the others who've been haunted by these ghosts. I hope that this confession can finally bring you all some peace." Sam felt a lump forming in his throat as he listened to the old man's words. He glanced over at the historian, who was silently wiping away tears. When the confession ended, they sat in silence for a long time, contemplating what they had just heard. Finally, Sam stood up, feeling a sense of weight lifting from his shoulders. "I think it's time," he said softly. "Time to let them go." Together, they walked back to the room where they had found the memorial altar. The apparitions of the deceased workers were still there, their faces twisted in pain. But as Sam pressed play on the tape player, their forms began to waver and dissipate. One by one, the spirits drifted away, until at last there was only silence and the flickering light of a single candle. The historian sighed deeply, and laid a hand on Sam's shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving them the peace they deserve." Sam turned to her, his eyes shining with tears. "It was the least I could do," he said simply. As they stood there, watching the last embers of the candle flicker out, they knew that their work was done. They had uncovered the truth, and given the victims of the tragedy a voice. Now, they could finally rest in peace. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, as guests began to arrive at the old Detroit Ironworks for the memorial service. Sam, the night security guard who had been instrumental in uncovering the truth behind the tragic accident that had taken place decades ago, stood beside the historian, feeling a mix of pride and apprehension. He glanced at his watch, making sure that everything was in order for the service to begin. The ironworks had been decorated with lanterns and softly glowing candles, casting a warm, flickering light across the grounds. A small stage had been set up near the center, adorned with a simple altar bearing photos and mementos of the victims. The air was filled with the murmur of voices as people greeted one another and shared stories of their loved ones. Sam spotted the families of the victims, their faces etched with grief and hope. He approached them, offering his condolences and expressing his gratitude for their presence. The historian, meanwhile, was busy ensuring that the audio-visual equipment was set up properly, ready to play the tape recording of the ironworks owner confessing to the cover-up. The sun finally dipped below the horizon, bathing the ironworks in darkness. A hush fell over the crowd as Sam stepped forward to address the gathering. He began by sharing the story of how he had first discovered the ledger detailing the accident, and how he had been haunted by the victims' cries for help ever since. He then introduced the historian, who continued the tale, explaining the depths of the ironworks owner's negligence and the lengths they had gone to in order to conceal the truth. As the historian finished speaking, Sam gestured to the stage, where a small tape recorder sat, its red record button glowing menacingly. He explained that they had found a hidden room containing a memorial altar, which held a safe containing the tape recording of the ironworks owner confessing to his crimes. The crowd grew silent as the historian pressed play, and the tinny voice of the long-dead man filled the air. "I take full responsibility for the tragic accident that claimed the lives of our workers." His voice crackled, and for the cover-up that followed. "My only intention was to protect my business, but in doing so, I condemned countless souls to an eternity of suffering. For that, I am truly sorry." The crowd sat in stunned silence as the confession continued. Sam glanced around, watching the expressions on the faces of the families and the community members. Some looked shocked, others angry, and a few even relieved. But as the recording played on, Sam noticed something strange. The apparitions of the victims, their faces contorted in pain, began to grow less agitated. Their cries of anguish softened, and they seemed to be taking in the words of the confession. Finally, the recording came to an end, and the silence was deafening. Sam took a deep breath and addressed the crowd once more. "We have done all that we can to right the wrongs of the past," he said, his voice firm and steady. "Now it is up to us to honor the memories of these brave souls and ensure that their sacrifices are never forgotten. Let us dedicate ourselves to making this world a safer place for all who inhabit it." A single tear trickled down Sam's cheek as he spoke. Around him, the crowd rose to their feet, joining hands in a show of solidarity. The historian stepped forward, inviting the families of the victims to come forward and lay flowers at the base of the memorial altar. One by one, they approached, their faces etched with grief and a newfound sense of peace. As the last flower was laid, the historian nodded to Sam, who pressed a button on the tape recorder, signaling the end of the service. The crowd began to disperse, murmuring to one another and exchanging hugs and words of comfort. Sam lingered behind, taking in the sight of the now empty ironworks, his heart filled with a mix of sadness and hope. He knew that the haunting would not truly be over until the last soul had found peace, but for now, he took solace in the knowledge that he had done all he could to help. As the final guest disappeared into the night, Sam turned off the lanterns and candles, plunging the ironworks back into darkness. He made his way to the security booth, knowing that his work was far from over. But as he sat down in the familiar chair and looked out at the silent grounds, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. For the first time in years, the ghosts of the ironworks seemed to be at rest. As the stars began to twinkle in the sky above, Sam switched on the security monitors, ready to begin the long watch once more. But tonight, he knew that he was not alone. The spirits of the victims would be with him, guiding him and offering strength in the dark hours to come. And so, the haunting of the ironworks continued, but it was a haunting no longer. It was a vigil, a solemn promise to never forget the sacrifices that had been made and to fight for justice and safety in their memory. Sam would keep this vigil for as long as he lived, and he would not rest until the world knew the truth. The memorial service at the old Detroit Ironworks marked a significant turning point not only for the community, but also for the haunted institution itself. Sam, the new night security guard, stood amidst the gathering of family members, friends, and local historians, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. The air was thick with emotion as they all shared their stories, paid their respects, and honored the memories of those who had lost their lives in the tragic accident decades ago. As the service came to a close, Sam and the historian, who had been working tirelessly to uncover the truth behind the tragedy, felt a weight lifting from their shoulders. They had shed light on the dark past of the ironworks, and in doing so, had given the spirits of the departed a chance to find peace. The historian, an elderly man with a kind face and a gentle voice, addressed the crowd. "We must never forget the sacrifices made by these brave souls," he said, his voice carrying across the empty factory floor. "Their stories must serve as a reminder of the importance of safety in the workplace, and of the consequences of greed and neglect." The families of the victims nodded in agreement, their faces etched with sadness and relief. They thanked Sam and the historian for their tireless efforts in bringing closure to their loved ones. The community also expressed their gratitude, recognizing the significance of the ironworks in Detroit's history and the importance of preserving its legacy. In the weeks that followed, Sam and the historian continued their work, documenting the history of the accident and its aftermath. They established a scholarship fund in memory of the victims, which would provide financial support for future generations of workers in the field of industrial safety. The ironworks began to heal, both physically and emotionally, as its dark past was brought to light and efforts were made to ensure that such a tragedy would never occur again. As Sam patrolled the halls of the ironworks late at night, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and purpose. The ghosts of the past had finally found peace, and the spirits of the departed could now rest in peace. The once haunted halls now resonated with the sounds of progress, as workers repaired the aging machinery and restored the ironworks to its former glory. One night, as Sam was making his rounds, he noticed a faint glow emanating from the hidden room they had discovered during their investigation. Curious, he approached and found the memorial altar illuminated by a single candle. On the altar, he spotted a note addressed to him. Trembling with anticipation, he unfolded the delicate parchment and read the words, "Thank you, Sam. We will never forget your kindness and your courage. You have given us the peace we so desperately sought. May you always find strength in the truth you have uncovered, and may it guide you in all your future endeavors." Moved to tears, Sam carefully placed the note back on the altar, blowing out the candle. As he turned to leave, he felt a sense of completion wash over him. He had done right by the spirits of the ironworks, and in return, they had bestowed upon him a gift far greater than he could ever have imagined. The haunting was gone, and the ghosts had finally found their rest. From that day forward, Sam knew that he would always be connected to the ironworks, its history, and the souls who had passed through its halls. Time passes, and Sam finds himself standing guard at the old Detroit ironworks once more. But now, it's a different kind of haunting that keeps him up at night. No longer are the spirits of the past flitting about the shadows, their cries of anguish echoing through the halls. Instead, it's the memories of their suffering that linger, a ghostly reminder of the darkness that once permeated this place. He thinks back to the day he first arrived, fresh out of the academy, naive and eager to make a difference. He'd never experienced anything like the ironworks, the oppressive weight of history, the sense of foreboding that seemed to hang in the air. But he'd also never felt more alive, more determined to right the wrongs of the past. He crosses the yard, making his rounds, and is greeted warmly by the few remaining workers. They're an odd lot, these men and women who've dedicated their lives to preserving the ironworks. Some, like him, are there out of a sense of duty. Others, because they can't imagine doing anything else. They all share a deep respect for the history of the place, and a determination to keep it from fading away. He stops by the old forge, where he first encountered the ghostly apparitions of the workers killed in the accident all those years ago. The memories come flooding back, their haunted eyes, their contorted faces, the way they seem to reach out to him for help. It's a strange sort of comfort, he supposes, to know that they're still here, still watching over the place that claimed their lives. The ironworks has changed since then, thanks in no small part to the efforts of Sam and his partner in crime, the historian. They worked tirelessly to document the history of the accident and its aftermath, to educate the public about the tragedy that unfolded here. And slowly, over time, they've seen the ironworks begin to heal. The scholarship fund they established in memory of the victims has grown, and every year, they award it to a deserving student who embodies the spirit of the ironworks, a young person with a passion for history, a dedication to preserving the past, and a burning desire to make a difference in the world. Sam and the historian have become something of a legend around these parts, revered for their unwavering dedication to the truth. People come from miles around to hear their stories, to learn from their experiences. They've even been invited to speak at conferences, where they share their insights on worker safety and historical preservation with audiences hungry for their knowledge. And yet, despite all they've accomplished, Sam can't help but feel a lingering sense of responsibility. He knows that the ghosts of the ironworks will never truly rest, not as long as there are others out there who might suffer the same fate. So he continues to stand guard, his vigilance unwavering, his heart forever bound to the place where history was made, and where history continues to unfold. Sam and the historian, having spent countless hours researching and documenting the tragic events that unfolded at the old Detroit ironworks, received a chilling letter from an anonymous source. The letter detailed another accident that had occurred at another ironworks, located several states away. The writer claimed that the accident shared striking similarities to the one that had claimed the lives of Sam's predecessors decades earlier. Although the two were reluctant to leave the safety and familiarity of their home base, the historian could not shake the feeling that this new development could be their chance to prevent further loss of life. After a long and heated debate, they decided to pack their bags and set out on a cross-country journey to investigate the new lead. Their journey was long and arduous, their minds constantly fixated on the potential horrors that lay ahead. As they neared their destination, they found themselves exchanging stories about the victims they had come to know so well. The historian told of the heartbreaking letters she had found in the ironworks archives, written by the families of the deceased, pleading for answers and justice. Sam, in turn, shared his own encounters with the restless spirits of the workers, their anguished cries echoing through his dreams. Upon arriving at the ironworks, they were greeted by the facility's night shift security guard, a middle-aged man named David. David had been working at the ironworks for over a decade and had heard rumors of the accident, but had been told by management to keep quiet about it. He was relieved to finally have someone to confide in, and eagerly showed Sam and the historian around the facility. As they toured the ironworks, Sam and the historian could not help but notice the same signs of neglect and disregard for worker safety that they had seen in Detroit. The equipment was outdated and poorly maintained, and the workers seemed to be operating under constant duress. They decided to spend the night, hoping to gather more information before confronting management about their concerns. Throughout the night, Sam and the historian kept vigil over the ironworks, monitoring the workers and the equipment for any signs of trouble. They were both exhausted, but knew that they could not afford to let their guard down. As they sat in the security office, they heard a loud clanging noise emanating from one of the furnaces. Rushing to investigate, they found a young worker trapped inside, his body pinned beneath a malfunctioning machine. Without hesitation, Sam and the historian sprang into action. They managed to free the worker, who was miraculously uninjured, and called for medical assistance. As the paramedics tended to the worker, they thanked Sam and the historian profusely for their quick thinking and heroic actions. The local news soon picked up the story, and the ironworks was forced to address the safety concerns that had been raised. In the weeks that followed, Sam and the historian continued their investigation, gathering evidence of the management's negligence and preparing to bring the case to light. They were heartened by the changes they saw taking place at the ironworks, as safety regulations were finally being enforced and workers were given the respect they deserved. Their journey, however, was not yet over. They still had to find a way to hold those responsible for the accident accountable and prevent anything like it from happening again. As they drove home, exhausted but satisfied, they knew that their work was far from over. But for now, they could rest easy, knowing that they had done everything within their power to make a difference. Sam and the historian, hearts heavy with the weight of their discoveries, arrive at the second ironworks. The sun casts a harsh, unforgiving light upon the sprawling complex, illuminating the rusting machinery and crumbling buildings. They step out of their vehicle, taking a deep breath before making their way to the front entrance. As they approach the door, Sam glances back at the historian, noting the grim determination etched into her features. Inside, the ironworks is a hive of activity. Workers bustle about, their faces etched with exhaustion and worrying. News of their arrival spreads quickly, and they find themselves surrounded by a throng of curious onlookers. Sam clears his throat, mustering his courage, as he begins to speak. "My name is Sam," he says, his voice loud and clear. "And this is my colleague, Dr. Emily Thompson. We have been investigating similar incidents at our own ironworks, and we believe that we have found evidence of negligence and cover-ups here as well." The silence that follows is palpable. The workers exchange anxious glances, their eyes darting back and forth between Sam and the historian. Finally, one of the older workers steps forward, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "You're not the first ones to say that," he says, his voice cracking with emotion. "We've been trying to get someone to listen to us for years." Sam nods sympathetically, his heart aching for the man and his colleagues. "We understand that coming forward may put you all at risk," he says, "but we believe that it's important to bring this to the attention of the authorities. We've compiled a report detailing our findings, and we're prepared to present it to whoever needs to see it." The older worker studies Sam's face for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether or not to trust him. Finally, he extends a gnarled hand. "My name is Jack," he says, "and I work in maintenance here. I've seen things that would make your hair stand on end. If you think there's anything I can do to help, just let me know." As they shake hands, Sam feels a surge of hope coursing through him. They spend the next several hours showing Jack and a few other trusted workers their report, pointing out the discrepancies and inconsistencies they've uncovered. The historian, meanwhile, takes the opportunity to speak with some of the female workers, who share their own harrowing experiences of harassment and discrimination within the company. Finally, they gather everyone together in a makeshift meeting room, its walls papered with safety posters and motivational slogans. Sam and the historian take their places at the front of the room, their hearts pounding with anticipation. "We've presented our findings to Jack and a few others," Sam begins, "and we believe that they speak for the rest of you. We're asking you to stand with us, to demand that your voices be heard and that justice be served." The room is silent for a long moment, the tension palpable. Then, slowly but surely, heads begin to nod in agreement. A murmur builds, growing louder and more insistent, until it becomes a deafening roar. Sam and the historian exchange glances, their hearts swelling with pride and determination. They've done it. They've rallied the workers, given them hope. Over the next few days, they meet with the authorities, presenting their report and testifying about the conditions they've witnessed at the ironworks. The local media picks up the story, shining a spotlight on the issue and putting pressure on the company to take action. As they watch the news reports from the safety of a nearby hotel, Sam and the historian clasp hands, their grip firm and unyielding. I never thought we'd actually make a difference, Emily whispers, her voice thick with emotion. We did, Sam replies, his voice steady. And we're going to keep doing it, together. No matter where our paths lead us. They spend the next few weeks visiting other ironworks, continuing their work to ensure that the lessons they've learned here are not forgotten. They travel from town to town, spreading their message of safety and justice, their bond growing stronger with each passing mile. Along the way, they encounter other historians and activists who share their passion, and they begin to dream of a brighter future for the industry, one in which workers are valued and protected, and tragedies like the one they've witnessed are nothing but distant memories. And so, their journey continues, fueled by the knowledge that they are not alone in their fight for a better tomorrow. As they travel from one ironworks to the next, they leave behind a trail of hope and resilience, a testament to the power of standing together against the darkness. Thank you so much for joining me on this cinematic journey. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Have you experienced a spine-chilling horror that left you trembling? Share your terrifying tale with us by emailing nightmarenetwork@hotmail.com, and we'd be thrilled to feature it on our platform. Until next time, happy movie watching.